Are you struggling with managing diabetes despite trying various plans and lifestyle changes? Have you tried different approaches to improving your health but still find it challenging to get the results you are looking for? Do you want to learn how to integrate strategies for diet, sleep, and exercise to improve diabetes management? My name is Gamden, a holistic wellness coach and the host of the Thriving with Diabetes podcast. I help people with type 2 diabetes achieve diabetes remission and avoid complications so they can live healthier, happier, and longer lives. In this episode of Thriving with Diabetes podcast, we are joined by Sarah Doyle, a doctor of physical therapy and certified functional medicine practitioner. Together, we explore nutrition, inflammation, sleep, and exercise. We hope you find this discussion helpful for diabetes, overall health, and longevity. Enjoy this episode and make sure to subscribe and follow us for more expert tips and strategies to thrive with diabetes. Dr. Sarah, welcome to the Thriving with Diabetes podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Let's start this episode with nutrition, which is crucial for managing diabetes and other health conditions as well. You advocate for the concept of food as medicine. Can you talk about that and share some nutrition tips to help control blood sugar levels?
Absolutely. Well, for starters, diabetes is a metabolic disorder that, one of the characteristics is blood sugar dysregulation. But blood sugar dysregulation is the beginning of many other diseases as well. Heart disease, as you know. So one of the main things I like to tell people when it comes to nutrition is, you have to look at food as medicine or food as poison. It's one or the other. You have a choice every time you eat. Eating is the most oxidative, stressful thing that we do because we literally take the outside world and put it inside our body. So if you think about that for a second, if you have a cut on your arm, you cover it with a Band-Aid and try to keep all the dirt out, right? So think of that concept when you are choosing food, right? You want to choose something that will protect you and keep the bad stuff out. And it's difficult when you're traveling, when your food choices are limited to I think it's like space food. All this food in plastic wrappers, all the food that you find at an airport, this thing called fast food, it's not really food. There's so many chemicals. So the number one thing is to do like whole foods, eat things that look like they did in nature, right? That's the number one thing. Now, diabetes is, yes, it's caused by blood sugar dysregulation, but it's also caused by prolonged stress and elevated cortisol levels, And just like if somebody has an autoimmune disease and they take a lot of steroids to reduce the inflammation, like somebody with lupus or somebody with rheumatoid arthritis, those corticosteroids can start to cause diabetes and prediabetes, but your endogenous corticosteroids from cortisol and stress can also cause that insulin resistance and lead to diabetes. So we know what causes stress, right? Traffic, meetings, family, this and that. but also having episodes of hypoglycemia can cause stress. So when we're looking at a metabolic disorder, we want to focus on keeping stable blood sugar levels and also eating during the daytime when the sun is out. You should not eat after dark. That's our when the sun goes down, our body is getting ready to shut down for the night. We have these responses, our circadian rhythm responses, which I'll get into later. But you really want to eat the right food at the right time. And I talk about this. I wrote 2 books. They're up there on my shelf. You can find them on Amazon. And the 7X method is everywhere books are sold. So the thin formula talks about pulling out toxins from our body. Thin formula stands for thyroid hormones, intercourse, nutrition, and you start pulling out toxins because these toxins will bog down our liver, and you need your liver and your pancreas to keep everything working. And then I followed up with the 7X method, and that is a completely different approach to eating that I learned while traveling solo in Central America several years ago. And when I was traveling, I came upon a liaison for this quantic medicine program that now it's over 50 years. They've been healing diseases using food as medicine. And it's heavily based in circadian science and a little bit of quantum physics, but mostly biochemistry and circadian science.
Brilliant. Very interesting information. Thank you for sharing that. So the key point here is food either or could be a medicine or a poison. Mm-hmm. And you emphasize that we focus on whole foods and to avoid processed or fast foods. Another tip was not to eat after the dark or when it is close to bed time. You shared something about, I think it's a book, the 7 method.
7X method, yes.
Yes, and you mentioned it's available in audio and hard copy on Amazon.
Yep, it's Audible. It's in the Kindle format. It's in paperback, and then it's also in Barnes and Noble Nook paperback. It's distributed by Simon and Schuster, so you can get it anywhere books are sold. I invested a lot of money in this because I felt like it was really important to share the message. I have a coaching program, and when I used this eating method with my clients, they would lose a lot of inflammation within a week. And by that, I mean like they would lose a pant size, or it started out like, oh, it's a great way to slim down for an event, but then as people stayed on it, their carpal tunnel went away. Some of their symptoms of their autoimmune diseases reduced, like rashes went away. So when we have skin rashes, that's usually a sign of some kind of liver overload. And obviously the liver's overloaded in metabolic syndrome and diabetes. So the way that they are, I'll try to summarize this. It can sound complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's really simple. So what they found was there's no such thing as calories, no such thing as fat grams or sugar grams. What they found is that our body responds in a circadian rhythm. You have your main circadian rhythm when you wake up in the morning and the light hits your eyes. So when the light hits your eyes, that signals to your adrenal glands to release cortisol and for your pineal gland to stop releasing melatonin. Melatonin is when you sleep. Cortisol is active during the day. Melatonin and cortisol should not be active at the same time, just like insulin and melatonin should not be active at the same time. So that's why it's important when the sun sets to reduce your food intake, because it disrupts the circadian rhythm of your pancreas. So let me try to simplify it. So they have 7 different food groups based on energy from the sun and also nutrition needs by certain organs and systems. So by nutrition, it really comes down to an electric charge. So we go all the way down to, think of the periodic table of elements where we have positive and negative charges. So everything that your body needs a certain parts of your body need certain electric charges at a certain time of day. So for starters, they start off with, they call it a purple group, and this is because a lot of the foods align with that food color. So the purple group would be from when you wake up, it's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And you can satisfy the electric charge needed in this particular group of bodies and systems, which is DNA regeneration, your pineal gland, your pituitary, and you can satisfy the electric charge by going outside, seeing sunlight in your eyes, or by having something they call foods with electropulsating startup energy. So things like dark berries, coffee, tea, nuts, seeds. This is the first food group. And it makes sense because we know the pineal gland was working really hard overnight, and as soon as you wake up, it stops making melatonin. So it's like it gets off its work shift, it wants to eat, and then it wants to rest. So it's pretty much just the same principle as you go to the gym, you lift weights, you eat some protein, you rest, and you do it all the next day. Well, your organs and systems function the same way. So then we march over to the blue group. This is from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. roughly. So I'll say that obviously the groups always go in the same order, but they're not always the exact time because we have daylight savings. Depending on what your latitude is, your days might be shorter or longer depending on the season. So it's more like you want to eat them in a certain order. You want to look at the time of day that you're hungry and try to eat something from that food group. So the second food group is the blue group. It is water-based fruits, and water-based fruits will nourish our hyaluronic acid production, which is important in all our tissues, as well as the thyroid. And this makes sense because the thyroid pumps out T4 into your body all night long, and it takes a break between roughly 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So what people who have thyroid disorders, sometimes they feel really sleepy in the afternoon, they crash, they feel cold. That's because that's a circadian rhythm of the thyroid. And then next, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., we march over to the green group. And green group is that. It's green foods like, lettuce and avocados and zucchinis, and you can even have like kiwis and green apples, even though they're fruits from the previous group. Some foods overlap. But you want to take like green groups, and these foods have kinetic energy. This is when you want all your raw green vegetables, and these foods nourish our sensory organs plus our genitourinary organs, which would be like our bladder, our ureters, our kidneys, and our genitals, our sensory organs. So then we march over to the red group. This is roughly 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And the foods in this group have a thermic energetic quality. And these foods will nourish our blood, our adrenal glands, our heart, and they are primarily this is when you want to eat red meat. This is when you want to have your chicken. If you're vegetarian, then this is when you want to really load up on other protein sources, I guess like tempeh or soy, mushrooms. You want to try to load up on protein at this time. And that makes sense because the research says that your adrenal glands work really hard in the morning, and then they take a break 6 hours later. And that's what the clinical studies say. So throughout my book, I have clinical studies that support what this healing center does in Central America. That was important to me because I'm a Western educated clinician. Okay, so then after the red group, we march over to the yellow group, which are all non-green vegetables. This is where you're going to find your this is where you're going to find all the lectins, right? Your eggplants, your tomatoes, all these foods that Dr. Gundry says you can't eat or you're going to die. It's just more of so what the time of day that you eat these. Just like, they say red meat causes colon cancer. Well, if you eat a steak at 8 o'clock at night, your body is not equipped to digest it, and that's when, of course, you're going to cause inflammation. But if you eat it, during the day when the sun is highest in the sky, then your body is equipped to assimilate the nutrition for it.
Before you continue watching or listening to this episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to book a call with me. If you are looking for personalized support to manage diabetes effectively and take control of your health, visit wellnessimpact.org to schedule your call today. Back to the episode.
So back to our yellow group from 3 to 5 p.m. These are all the non-green vegetables. This nourishes our RNA. We all know RNA from the vaccines, right? Well, RNA are a complement to DNA, and RNA are protected by these things called telomeres. So if you think about your RNA as if it was like a shoelace, then a telomere is the little plastic thing on the end of the shoelace, right? That keeps the shoelace from unraveling. So eating carrots or having an avocado or having any vegetable, like even potatoes, like any vegetable that's not green, it's a good time of day to eat it. This will help your RNA, help you stay young. And then we march over to the orange group, which is especially important for people with diabetes because this is from roughly 5 to 6 p.m. It's before dinner, and these foods have like a magnetic charge to them. They nourish your pancreas, your liver, your digestive system. Many of these foods will convert to short-chain fatty acids like propionate, butyrate, and they will nourish the colon. So these foods would be like the legumes, beans, lentils, also herbal teas. So I know my grandmother was from south of London, so I was raised, we always had tea before dinner. And this is actually a really healthy habit for people with diabetes, as long as you're just having the tea, not black tea, not green tea, but like an herbal tea. This will help activate this. So this is probably, if you don't take anything away from what I say today, eat your fruit in the morning, eat your red meat at lunch, and then have your tea as a diabetic prior to having dinner. And then dinner, the last group is the white group. And these foods are calming to the nervous system. They call it more like of an insular energy. So that would be roughly if your sun sets, if you have sun from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., then this would be dinner 6 to 7 p.m. You have a small serving from the white group. And this is why people eat, pasta and rice at lunch and they feel so sleepy they have to go get a coffee. Because you're eating these foods at the wrong time. This food is meant to calm you down. That's why we call it comfort foods, like mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese. So those are our comfort foods. And they're meant to be eaten in a small portion at the end of the day to prepare your body for sleep. So ideally, you're not having anything but water after 7 p.m. The pancreas can shut down like it wants to and rest. And then your pineal gland turns on around 9 p.m. to start the melatonin, and the process starts all over. So everything has to do with our planetary influences. They're undeniable. We know that we're supposed to be sleeping at night and awake during the day, and we're just learning in Western medicine about the peripheral genes. The peripheral genes in our organs and systems. It was actually the 2017 Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology was awarded to 3 scientists who discovered this clock gene in all of our cells. So we're behind, but we're on to something here. But this other healing center has been doing it for 50 years, so that's why I wrote a book about it.
Brilliant. Very interesting information. I know there are a lot to digest here, and we cannot memorize everything you mentioned.
No.
And all what you have mentioned now is available in your book. The one is behind you.
Yeah, the 7X method.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can get Audible, but there's 50% recipes in the back, full disclosure. So half the book is, you have to read everything word for word, every chart, every word, in order for the files to be accepted. So I apologize in advance, but half the book is just me reading recipes. If you just listen to the first 90 minutes, you should get the gist.
Yeah, and about recipes, uh, one of the most questions that I get is what to eat, and they ask for recipes. So it's I think it's going to be very helpful. I have noticed that you divided nutrition into groups
Mm-hmm.
or based on calories. That is very interesting. And I like the example you mentioned when you said about red meat. And people might argue about that. You mentioned cancer. Uh, just said if you eat it late at night, it's not like when you eat it in the middle of the day.
That's
Uh,
correct. That
and
goes for all food. That anything consumed after 7 p.m. will have double the impact on your blood sugar. So if you eat a chicken breast at 8 p.m., it's going to have double the impact on insulin as it would if you ate it at 2 or 3 p.m. Your body doesn't want to have food at night, and that's why it has such a tremendous impact on the insulin.
brilliant. Very interesting information here. You touch a little bit about inflammation, and chronic inflammation is a key factor in many health issues. Can you explain a little bit more about the link between inflammation and health conditions like diabetes, and how we can reduce the inflammation through either diet or lifestyle?
Sure, absolutely. I heard this example from I call her one of my idols, Dr. Jill Carnahan. She's based out of Colorado. She's also a functional medicine doctor, and she specializes a lot with people who do mold detoxing. But I'll use the example because I think it's applicable for the inflammation. So she tells everybody that we're born with a bucket. And our bucket means we have genetics that are able to get rid of toxins and deal with certain things, right? Even the blood sugar regulation. So we are all born with a different size bucket. If somebody has genetics that can detox more toxins more quickly, they have a bigger bucket and they can fill it with more toxins before they start feeling the effects, the inflammation. Whereas some of us are born with little buckets and we only have a small amount, a small window really to play with before the disease processes start taking place because our body gets overwhelmed. So part of it is genetics, right? We hear the word genetics, it's what we're born with. And then the other part of it is epigenetics. Epigenetics is when our environment comes into play. So obviously being around secondhand smoke and pollution and having a lot of maybe like alcohol, like these are all really bad things that are inflame our body. We know that. But some of the hidden sources of inflammation are also like in our beauty products, in our sleep habits. One of the first things I primarily coach people with sex hormones, with menopause, andropause, and perimenopause. But I always look at blood sugar regulation first, and then we look at the adrenal function second. So your adrenal glands will respond to stress, right? And I talked about this earlier, that if you're having a lot of cortisol release, the cortisol is, I see people who are thin, who don't eat a lot of sugar, end up with most working men in the United States have prediabetes, and it's not from sugar consumption, it's not from being overweight, it's from excess cortisol release. So what do we do about this? Number one, your adrenal glands will repair between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you're up until midnight or 1 a.m. answering emails, or maybe you just had such a long day and by the time the kids get to bed, it's like the only time you have to yourself, so you want to reward yourself by watching a movie or trying to mentally check out. It's one of the worst things you can do, because if you're constantly depriving yourself of that time that you need to repair your adrenal glands, it has long-term consequences. So controlling cortisol is an important part of controlling diabetes, just as well as the diet. And going to bed early and trying to, like, I have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 9:30 p.m. That tells me I need to get it together, start winding down, and get my butt to bed. And I make sure that I'm asleep before 11 p.m. If I really should be 10:30. I should bump it up. I should practice what I preach, because if I can tell if I stay up past midnight, I can tell I don't feel as good the next day. I feel like my sleep, even if I get 7.5 hours, the quality isn't as good. I'm not as sharp in the morning. So, having that good sleep hygiene will help tone down the inflammation, just because you're taking care of your adrenal glands. That's important. So not eating fake food, not staying up till 1 in the morning, those are important ways to keep down inflammation. And then, even if you are eating foods that you look natural, you have to read the labels and make sure there's no chemicals. If there's anything you can't pronounce, if you're eating fruits and vegetables that are sprayed with pesticides, those are hormone disruptors. They are sometimes neurological disruptors. We know some pesticides, like all the soldiers that were exposed to Agent Orange. That was like a really heavy-duty pesticide. Now they're suffering from, Parkinson's and dementia and all these other things. So just because we're not exposed to Agent Orange doesn't mean we're exposed to a little bit, just a little bit here, just a little bit there. If you're exposed to just a little bit all the time, you're going to give your body inflammation, and your body has to keep up with it. Like in my 20s, I went to a natural doctor. She did something called a live blood analysis. So she pricked my finger just like you do when you check your blood sugar, and put my blood on a little slide, put it under a microscope, and then projected it on a TV screen. And I could see all my little white blood cells, like the Pac-Man game from the 80s, like trying to eat up all the stuff in our blood. The more toxins you have, the slower your body is, the more you're inflamed you become, because your body can't keep up with getting the garbage out.
Brilliant. Very interesting information. So some of the key factors that you mentioned are genetics, environment, beauty products, stress, and unhealthy foods. And you mentioned as well the time we should go to bed. It should be about 10 or 10:30. That is very helpful information. And I'm not sure about the test. Is there a test specific for inflammation?
Most people can get general blood work from their doctor. It depends on what country you live in. If you have socialized medicine, it may be more difficult to get. I talk to people in like UK, and they come to the United States to get work, or same thing with Canada. They can't really get the care they need. In the United States, we just, ask the doctors can do something called a high sensitivity, like a CRP, C-reactive protein. We look for homocysteine. We look for the SED rate, the SED rate. There's blood work that your regular doctor can do. But here's the thing. Everybody has inflammation. So why are you going to spend money on a test when you can just start changing your life? It doesn't really matter. I tell people, I test on things that I need to test on, like as I can't tell with hormones, or when I'm testing brain chemistry. I don't know, I need a test. But like when it comes to testing for like parasites or inflammation, just assume that you have it and start taking the steps to fight it. And if you do the things, like I tell people, if they follow the principles in my book, 7X method, and they're still not feeling well, then they should go see a specialist. They should go see an endocrinologist. I do 30-minute Zooms with people before I take them onto my coaching program, just to make sure that there's no red flags, that they really are a candidate for the coaching program. They don't need to be referred out to a specialist. So just assume you have it. Assume you have inflammation, because we are living in a crazy world.
Yeah. So it's the default, but it's about the level and how we reduce it.
Yeah, one of the most important things you can do for yourself is have muscle mass. That is probably the greatest anti-inflammatory thing you can do, the greatest anti-aging thing you can do. And a lot of diabetics wake up in the morning with high blood sugar. And this is also because our circadian rhythm of our adrenal glands is to have a big push of cortisol in the morning. So this can cause high blood sugar. So in the purple group, in the 7X method, you can skip the food and just exercise. Go outside, exercise, get sunlight, do some interval training, do some cardio, do some resistance training. Men and women have to be doing some kind. You don't have to lift weights if you don't want to go to a gym and lift weights, but you've got to do like air squats, push-ups. You have to do some weight-bearing activity to keep your bones healthy. That goes for men and women, and especially if you have comorbidities that can decrease your bone density. So I was reading an article by some doctors from Harvard, and they were discussing how the skeletal muscular system is actually being reclassified as an organ because of its role in the metabolic health. And the greatest thing you can do is get up in the morning and exercise and build muscle. The more muscle you have, the less inflammation you have.
Brilliant. Very interesting information. Thank you for sharing that. Before you continue watching or listening to this episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to book a call with me. If you are looking for personalized support to manage diabetes effectively and take control of your health, visit wellnessimpact.org to schedule your call today. Back to the episode. I know earlier you mentioned some information about sleep, and usually sleep is something people overlook, and it can be a factor or contribute to a chronic disease. If you can share some strategies or helpful habits that people can start implementing to improve sleep quality and overall health.
Absolutely. Sleep is so important. I just listened to an interview. It was actually a British guy. Do you ever follow Diary of a CEO?
I think I don't know his name, but I watched some of his videos.
I forgot his real name too. But I listened to an interview by a Dr. Ma. I think she's based in LA, and she works with like sports teams. And what she does is she helps them use sleep to improve their free throws. I don't know. I'm not a sports person, but she was rattling off all these statistics where people were having major improvements in their performance just by changing their sleep. Because they're athletes, they want to stay up, they play video games, they sleep, they get up, they go to practice, they take a nap. It's really unhealthy. When they stopped doing that and started going to bed regularly, their athletic performance improved. Why is that? Well, because your body's in better shape, but because your mind is in better shape. And what we found is that, with, people who don't sleep well, they don't get enough sleep, chronic insomnia, they're more predisposed to Alzheimer's, dementia, and a host of other, not getting good sleep will be like a significant risk factor to so many diseases. So what do? Like I said, stop eating after 7 p.m. That's definitely going to help. It's like, I guess you can call it intermittent fasting, but definitely don't have anything after 7 p.m. You should always fast, have nothing but water for at least 12 hours a day, maybe 14 hours a day. If you're really having a hard time getting your blood sugar under control, like you could try just eating from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to maybe try to get a little bit tighter control of your blood sugar. And you want to make sure that you are not doing aggressive exercise before bed. Like if you want to eat dinner and go for a walk or do something mild, like go on the elliptical, do something yoga, Pilates, that's fine. But if you have dinner and then you go to do like a CrossFit, or like when you're like aggressively lifting weights and doing like, there's different places here. I don't know what chains you have where you're from, but when you're like running on a treadmill, going to go do this, like you can't be getting your heart rate up and down like that before bed, because that'll disrupt your ability to get deep sleep, and it'll also decrease your ability to get the REM sleep. So we have different phases. We have 90-minute sleep cycles, and we have different phases in each sleep cycle. So you want to get deep sleep because that's when your body recovers. And that can be disrupted if you're watching a scary movie before bed, anything that's getting your heart rate up. We want to get your heart rate up in the morning when your cortisol is supposed to be elevated, but we don't want to get your heart rate up at night when your cortisol is supposed to be in the tank and your melatonin is supposed to be up. So strategizing your exercise to mimic your adrenal pattern is helpful. That's probably one of the best things. And if you're not sleeping and you're not exercising, you need to, in the morning, do something that wears you out, makes you sweat. If you start exercising, if you get a trainer, you do whatever you need to do. If you really push yourself for like an hour in the morning, an hour, 75 minutes max is what they say. Otherwise, it starts putting too much of a toll on you. If you exercise, give it like really hard and challenge yourself to where you lose your breath, you start doing that every day, you're going to start sleeping better. You're definitely, and we all know, get rid of the computers, don't be looking at blue lights. I think that's pretty cliche. I think everybody knows that. Is everybody going to do that? No, I look at my phone before bed, but I put a blue light blocker on so I don't stimulate my eyes, right? That's what, in the 7X method, that purple group, you're getting like that blue light that's waking you up in the morning, right? That stimulates the opposite of what we want. Your body's going to respond to whatever stimulus you give it. So if you're eating snacks with sugar, like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, you're going to be up. If you are just drinking red wine to help you relax, well, guess what? The alcohol kills your REM sleep. You don't get that. And then it also has a lot of histamine in it. Well, histamine, it has neuromodulatory effects on your brain that are stimulatory. So if you're drinking red wine, you might think you're relaxing because it binds to GABA receptors in your brain, makes you feel relaxed, but you get like a rebound the next day with more glutamate, more anxiety, and like I said, there's histamine. Alcohol's a no-no. So whatever you do to yourself, your body's going to respond. You can train. No marathon runner runs a marathon the first day of training. Your body responds to whatever stimulus you give it. You're in the driver's seat, so you need to take accountability for what you want, and then just make it happen. I mean, nobody's perfect. You fall off the bandwagon, but you forgive yourself and you get back on.
Brilliant. Very interesting information. It's like saying, if you want to sleep better, you need to do exercise, and if you want to do good exercise, you need to sleep or to have quality sleep. You mentioned the blue light, and I wanted to ask you about this. Is it better to have yellow bulbs or lights or blue or white?
Okay, well,
for the room, I mean.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. The incandescent light bulbs were supposed to be the best, but it's really hard to find them. They're all being replaced with LED lights. I think the best thing we can do is probably just throw on some blue light blockers. They don't have to be, you can just get them for like $20 off at Amazon or wherever. Like they're not, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but like after like 9 o'clock, just throw on some blue light blockers so that you're not stimulating your brain. Let your brain rest.
Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Do you want to touch a little bit more about exercise?
Sure. That's a really broad topic. If you are deconditioned, go slow and steady wins the race, right? Just start. For some people who are obese, just walking for 10 minutes might be the cardiovascular challenge that somebody who's fit might get after 90 minutes of riding their bike in the afternoon in the sun. So you have to meet yourself where you're at and make safe transitions, sometimes people I see, and what I should say is some pitfalls that I find are when people like they get, oh, I'm gung ho like January 1st, right? New Year's resolution, I'm gonna work out, and then they do like 2 different classes in a day, and then they hurt their shoulder, and then they hurt their ankle, and then they're back to not working out at all. So instead of trying to be something that you're not, accept who you are and progress slowly, right? Especially if you've been out of shape and haven't exercised in a long time. You need that for your heart, to be safe with your heart, right? That's why I always do warm-ups and cool-downs. I know they're annoying, but they exercise trainers, they do that on purpose. It's for your heart health. So just meet yourself where you're at. Start with some low cardiovascular exercise, low intensity. Work yourself into interval training. By interval training, I mean your heart rate's going up and down. But you can always catch your breath, and you can usually work out for like 45 minutes. That's interval training. If you want to do high intensity training, that's where your heart rate is like moderate to high, and it's only like 20 minutes because it's really that intense. So there's different instructors that'll do that. And then, of course, there's resistance training, which we all need, especially as we age, because muscle mass is your greatest asset against metabolic disease.
Very interesting. It's like you draw a map for someone to get started with exercise. So the key advice here is to start slow, and that is key for sustainability. And people can progress like from cardio to high intensity interval training, then with strength training. Very interesting. And you made it simple for anyone to follow it. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I have got another question before we finish this episode. What inspiring message or advice would you like to leave with our viewers and listeners to motivate or help them on their health journey?
Wow. Let me think about that. I think the biggest thing that we can do is like feel defeated for making mistakes, and just know that there's other people out there that are worse off than you. Don't feel bad. Don't judge yourself. God's your only judge. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge other people. You're on your own path. And so just stay on your own path and forgive yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your great, inspiring message.
Thank you. I hope that we can help some people get healthy.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a valuable episode. People can learn a lot. Specifically, if they can go and get that book, the 7X method.
Yeah, it has I talk about exercise in there. I talk about sexual health because it's a valid predictor of our overall wellness. There's a personality quiz to see which like 7-day reset. I have a 7-day reset in there, so you can recalibrate your metabolic systems in just 7 days. And I have a quiz that assesses your personality to see which one you would be more likely to stick to. And yeah, it's full of stuff. It's nutrition, exercise, how to reboot. It's got recipes for long-term success.
Brilliant.
Can't lose.
Yeah. Very interesting. How can people find you if they want to get in touch with you or learn more about you and what you do? Great.
Thanks for asking. Well, the Instagram and YouTube handle is 7X Method. 7X Method, real easy. And then my website is drsarahdoyle.com. So it's just DRSARAHDOYLE.com. It's all telehealth. I created it during the pandemic to, help people when we needed help. So everything is done at home, from the lab testing to you can find me there.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your contact information. Is there anything you think that we didn't cover or talked about?
No, I think we did great. We had a good time here today, and I know the 7X method can seem daunting or complicated, but once you read through it and listen to it, you realize it's a simple way of eating, and I hope that I can help. I wrote that book. I spent all that time and money just to help people, so I hope that I can help at least a dozen people that listen today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Now we have come to the end of this episode.
Okay.
And I would like to express my sincere gratitude for our amazing guest, Dr. Sarah Doyle, for sharing her expertise and insights with us today. I also want to thank all of you, our dedicated viewers and listeners, for being a part of this episode. If you need additional guidance and support, you can book a call with me at wellnessimpact.org. If you found today's episode insightful and valuable, I invite you to join our community of people committed to thriving with diabetes. To stay up to date with upcoming episodes, empowering discussions, and practical tips, make sure to subscribe and follow us. Once again, thank you, Dr. Sarah, for being our guest today.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this impactful journey. Until next time, take care of your health and keep thriving.